Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk about probably 5 reasons why melee ignite is going to be a thing in 22, the Trial of the Ancestors. So even though we didn't have any kind of needed meta shakeup through the patch notes, because I mean the patch notes were rather long-ish, I would say, but the majority here is affecting Ruthless. But we still have like a shit ton of new support gems, and a bunch of those and reworked old support gems are heavily favoring the melee ignite playstyle. So this is probably something new GG wants to introduce, because the majority of ignite builds are usually spellcasters, because overall, if you compare the melee playstyle to the caster playstyle is usually a lot more safe, I would say. For example, if you would compare I don't know, an Ice Crash Ignite Elementalist, for example, compared to a Fireball Ignite, where one build stays at range, it just shoots out fireballs, the other one has to go in, slam the ground for over 1 second attack time, and it's rather a bit cringe to play, especially because you're getting yourself into pretty bad positions when it comes to getting meleeed overall from bigger packs, or at least monsters, that is, right? So today I want to go over 5 things where I think it's going to be great. So here we are. The first reason is going to be the new added support gems, which one would be Controlled Blaze and the other one is Sadism. So what does these do? Controlled Blaze supports melee attack skills, providing them with a chance to ignite, which is rather important. For each ignite inflicted with this skill recently, it deals less damage but more ignite damage. So ignite in the normal way is just a 1-stack ignite. If you hit the monster 10 times, the strongest ignite out of those 10 will overweigh all the smaller ignites. So the more often you're gonna hit the monster, the higher your ignite's gonna be. For each ignite inflicted with the skill recently. Recently always refers to the past 4 seconds. So we don't have any specific information on how much more ignite damage is going to be. Is 10% more ignite damage would be a total of 40 if every hit ignites and you consistently hit with the same skill, or is it going to be even more? And then we have Sadism support, which supports any skill that hits enemies, causing damaging ailments inflicted by them to deal damage faster, but cause the inflicted ailments to have less duration. This sounds like a little bit of a Swift Affliction kind of style. This is not really related to melee attacks like the Controlled Blaze, but it's still going to be one more support gem that favors those damaging ailments faster. You want to point out, what does damaging ailments do overall? It does not increase damage done per ignite. You know, so if I just write this down, you say you have I don't know, 1 million ignite damage over 4 seconds equals 250k DPS ignite, right? Because 1 million total ignite damage over 4 seconds means 250k DPS. Let's assume we do have 100% faster ignites. What that means is you're still gonna do 1 million damage, ignite damage over 2 seconds, which is about 500k DPS ignite. So I don't know if this is if it's 50% to be double amount, but it should be 100%. So the damage is still the same from one single ignite, but you're gonna deal the same damage in a short amount of duration, means your DPS is going up. That means if you're consistently hitting the boss, here you can do 1 million damage over 4 seconds. So 4 seconds, 1 million damage done. With the second one, if I'm able to keep attacking the boss, I'm actually going to do double the amount of damage, because I can deal 2 million damage over 4 seconds instead of 1 million over 4 seconds. So, as I said, ignite faster is increasing your DPS but lowers the duration. But if you consistently hit the boss, you gain more DPS overall throughout the fight. But there is one important thing to note here, which is balancing your duration and your faster bleeds, faster ignites, or faster ailments overall, right? Because I think the base duration of ignite is 4 seconds. If you permanently use things like faster ignites, faster ailments, faster this, faster that, you're gonna have your ignite duration to be a second, or maybe 1.5 seconds. And this starts to feel not like in dot build anymore, because you hit the monster and the second later they stop damaging over time, right? Because your duration is that short. That's why it's really good to go get things like Unbound Ailments, which increases the duration of your Ignite. So you want to balance that. You want to get as much duration as possible and lower the duration with faster Ignites, increasing your DPS, basically, right? So you want to balance that out to have like somewhere around the 4-second mark of Ignite to make it feel good. And this counts for also like any kind of like poison or bleeds, for example. Poison is a little bit different, but this should be an Ignite video, so I don't want to go into detail why poison is different, because like many stacks and so on. So first reason, the new support gem looking dope, even though we haven't seen the strict like information about those. The second one is the Ascendancy balance or the rework. So the Chieftain got reworked, and it looks like to be pretty cool when it comes to like things like igniting, because they have like for example, Dukamas War Herald. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see that. Skills from equipped body armor are supported by level 30 Ancestral Call. Skills from body armor are supported by level 20 Fist of War. So the one thing, I mean, it works both ways, but I think Ancestral Call is super nice for like any kind of like strike skills, and Fist of War is a sick damage or support for your slam skills. So overall, you can imagine playing with like a 7 or an 8 or a 9 link in certain cases. So that's going to be a massive quality of life, as well as like a damage multiplier in that. There are other things that increases the fire damage. For example, here, non-unique jewels cause increase in ruptures to other damage types in large radius to be transformed to fire damage. So there's a lot of like things that can be sorted into the kind of like melee playstyle, especially when it comes to like things like slams, and those have been played in the past, whether it's like a Doriani's Fist Slam Ignite, for example, because of the insane damage effectiveness. There is like things like Ice Crash, and when you play like Elementalist, you want to have like big freaking slams and dealing hilarious amounts of damage. But I personally do not want to play any kind of like slam ignite build, because this would be terrible when it comes to like something like elemental overload. You know, if you have crit in the past 8 seconds or so, you get like a 40% more damage multiplier. And when using slam skills, it is very hard to have like a good uptime without going for crit, because you're attacking so slow, and even if you one-shot monsters, when are you ever gonna have like those consistent crits to actually keep the ally overload up? They tend to like kind of like buff this by the Divine Infernal, what do you say, Threshold Jewel, which says like, attacks started by Infernal Cry deal more ignite damage, but Combust is disabled, but still is like an astonishing 60% more damage with Ignite, or up to 60%, which kind of was the counterpart for slam skills not being able to consistently use ally overload. Problem here is when they decided to come back to all the threshold jewels, they removed a bunch of those, and this is now drop disabled. This does no longer exist, so that's like a bad part about it. But I personally would rather play an Elementalist as Ignite instead of the Chieftain, even though it sounds like pretty good. Let me quickly put up a PUB here, so we could just like toggle along here, right? So let's take new. As I said, ally overload especially is also like on a very weird position, because something like Chieftain doesn't really have too much access unless they have like a new talent now, but I don't think so, for getting like elemental equilibrium and ally overload, like ally overload over here. And Elementalist doesn't really need that, because Elementalist does have a lot of like other options to gain exposure, and this would be nicer suited for something like a Chieftain playstyle to actually gain the benefits of that, right? But one thing that makes Elementalist so freaking good is Shaper of Flames. It's always ignite, all damage can ignite. So I can use something like Ice Crash, which is a complete cold skill, to set enemies on fire, and especially 25% more damage with ignites if your highest damage type is fire. So if you get some conversion in, you know, cold to fire, for example, then we're gonna have like big junky ignites, and this is something the Elementalist does so well, and that's why Elementalist has been the undisputed best ascendancy to go with ignites. And with this node, you can also play like Eternity Shroud, for example, to inflict like crazy ignites, and all of that does not work for the Chieftain. So yeah, even though slam skills might be a niche case scenario where you want to have like big ignites, but I think they're more like suited for bleedings, maybe, I don't know. But I'm heavily considering doing this as an Elementalist, because Elementalist is just king when it comes to ignites. But still, there is also like this reason. Then next part, reason number 3 would be the passive skill tree balance. So there is several new, I'm not going to go over all of them, but they have like a bunch of new and changed nodes that are affecting melee based ignite things. You know, for example, here attack skills cluster to the passive tree, some of the marauder location, which means like heavily favored for the chieftain playstyle. But there are certain things that have like, for example, 10.multi, fire.multi for attack skills. So this is also like new things that they also are gonna put in there. For example, Dirty Techniques, one of the best nodes for like faster bleedings. They now have like, wait a second, it's like 10.multi for ailments, and now causes damaging ailments to deal damage 15% faster. So this got like buffed as well. So a lot of like nodes that were before like bleed nodes or yeah, faster bleeds and stuff like that, they changed that to being ailments. And ailments is poison, is ignite, and is bleed. So they just want to make like this overall or overhaul from the skill tree, from going away from all these like perma like bleed nodes, ignite nodes. I mean, there are specific ones in the tree still, but they want to get like this overhaul where they say like, instead of increased bleed damage, it's going to be increased ailment damage. So you can use those specific tree nodes to work for poison, for ignite, and for bleed, instead of only bleed, and then you're lacking all the other cool things. The next thing, reason number 4, is the Ruthless support. So what Ruthless support does is basically, if we're gonna scroll in here, the most important line here when we talk about like ignite, right? Ruthless blows with supported skills deal up to 100% or 98% more damage with bleeding caused by melee hits. So you now say like, wait a second, we're talking ignite. Why do you keep up like Ruthless here when it's like more damage with bleeding? Doesn't really make sense, right? But we have patch notes, and now the Ruthless support is getting changed from now causes Ruthless blows with supported skills to deal more damage with ailments caused by melee hits. The same reason that I just mentioned here with like the bleed nodes and so on, they are now ailment nodes. So that means Ruthless support will now give like up to 100% more damage with all 3 ailments, which is bleeding, poison, and ignite. So we have like new support gems for ignite playstyle, and older support gems that are now including all ailments instead of only like, for example, bleeding, and that's going to be really, really big. And then we have another reason, which would be strong attack-based ignite uniques. For example, the Diadem Dawn and the Story of the Val. Story of the Val we're going to talk in a second, but this belt is usually used for, what was it, Burning Arrow, when the meta was like Burning Arrow Elementalist, like one of the best builds. Which says ignites you inflict with attack skills, this important attack skills, deal damage 35% faster, which is like insane amount of like DPS increase, with the downside deal no physical damage. So now you would maybe think like, yeah, we play like a melee skill, and are we only allowed to play like fire skills, or if we go elementalist? So conversion wise, how are we gonna do this, right? And if I think about, I do not want to play chieftain as a slam build. I would rather play Elementalist, so I can use this belt, but we deal no physical damage. So we want to convert all the physical damage coming from our weapon and those kind of things into, as I said, fire damage to be able to ignite, or like other types if we play Elementalist. And this is why I specifically noted here the Story of the Val. So the Story of the Val is basically the upgraded version of the Fate of the Val. I think you can upgrade this like in the Incursion Temple with the vial and stuff like that. But what this thing is doing is, first of all, having like some, yeah, I mean, it's not like the strongest weapon, but it has some crazy modifiers. For example, 50% of physical damage from hits with this weapon is converted to a random element. Fire is good if we talk about chieftain and stuff, because fire damage ignites, but as elementalist it doesn't really matter, because my cold damage can ignite, my chaos damage doesn't really matter, right? So since the Diadem Dawn says deal no physical damage, we already converting 50% of all of our physical damage with this weapon to a random element, being able to actually deal damage. Then, hits with this weapon always ignite, freeze, and shocks, which is like pretty nice when it comes to like kind of like built-in elementalist here. Hits with this weapon freeze enemies as do dealing up to 200% more damage. Hits with this weapon shock enemies as dealing a lot more damage. So we're gonna get big chills and freezes. We're gonna get big shocks on the enemy, which is like a more multiplier to your overall damage, including Ignite. And Ignites inflicted with this weapon deal up to like 75% more damage. So a pretty solid one-handed weapon, allows us to wear a shield, allows us to shield charge, allows us to go like a lot more tanky, and we have like a built-in damage conversion on top of that. And if we use then something that comes into my mind when thinking about this like melee playstyle would be Infernal Blow. So Infernal Blow is basically one of the coolest melee skills when it comes to like exploding entire screens with a built-in like explosion system. Is a base fire damage skill, so definitely nice. And it also comes with a 60% physical damage converted to fire damage. And on top of that, there is the divergent version from Infernal Blow that gives you an astonishing 3% increased burning damage and 1% chance to ignite per quality. Means on 20% quality on this divergent Infernal Blow, we're getting 60% increased burning damage and 20% chance to ignite. So chance to ignite doesn't really matter too much for an elementalist because Shaper of Flames. But what the next important thing here to note is that if we take a look at the Shaper of Flames again, 25% more damage with ignite you inflict with hits for which the highest damage type is fire. That means this doesn't really count if you play like Ice Crash, unless you have like a cold to fire support. So you want to have, if you hit the enemy, you want to have your highest damaged part should be fire, then you get a 25% more damage. And we're gonna enable this with the Infernal Blow, because here is 60% conversion, and the for example, the weapon that I was talking about, the Story of the Vaal, has 50% conversion. So this doesn't really work in that way, because you can only have like 100% conversion. So if we do, we have 50% from the weapon and 60% from the skill. We have like a total of 100% fist to, I mean, it's not really 110% fist to fire, because the 50% here is to a random element, but it's 60% will be fire. So instead of 110%, which doesn't work because it's always 100%, it will be rather something like, I don't know, like 47% and 53%. So the 110% is going to get squeezed in, but our highest part will always be fire. So we guarantee that our Shaper of Flames is going to get this we're gonna get this like extra portion, as long as we keep the ratio in that way, and getting like extra fire damage to our attacks and stuff like that, like fire damage to attacks, Abyssals, whatever. We're gonna guarantee that on top of that. So this is why I think it's gonna be quite crazy. And then we have like other things, for example, like Infernal Cry, which has also like a built-in explosion. It covers enemies in Ash, so they take increased fire damage from my ignites. We exert the next 6 melee attacks that we perform, and this also counts for any kind of melee attack, because there are certain war cries that only work for slam skills. For example, I think Seismic Cry is only exerting slam skills. This one exerts 6 melee attacks, so it should work for the Infernal Blow as well. We're gonna combust on top of that. We also have some more conversion and so on. So I think like this overall product basically of saying like, hey, we have new support gems. If you want to, getting the Chieftain Slam or non-slam playstyle in that also works with the weapon that I just showcased, to have this like build an Elementalist. We have Elementalist for being like the undisputed best Ignite Ascendancy anyways. We have a bunch of like new ways to add more ignite damage. We have skill like old support gems having now ailment modifiers instead of like bleed modifiers, and we also have like really cool ignite uniques on top of that. Makes me think that melee ignite is going to be pretty good in the next season. Is it going to be the undisputed best ignite build? Will it be better than something like EK Ignite? I have no idea, but it's looking pretty cool, and this really makes me think like that I want to league start Infernal Blow, Ignite, Elementalist as my league starter for the Trial of the Ancestors. A couple more days to go. Maybe there is like more cool ways or uniques that they're going to showcase, or spoiler for us in the upcoming days that might change my mind, but as of right now, this looks pretty spicy. Alright guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about all of that. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.